So we have one question regarding doctrine of estoppels. Can you please clarify?
Doctrine of estoppel. It is an outdated concept actually. Estoppel means, look at section 115 of Evidence Act. Maybe you studied Indian Evidence Act 1872. Section 115 of the Evidence Act deals with doctrine of estoppel principle, and that estoppel principle you invariably applied in your business laws paper also, say partnership, partner by estoppel or agent by estoppel. Basically, concept of estoppel is, if I express myself, if I behave in such a way, if I make somebody believe something as true, by virtue of my conduct or silence or whatever it is, I am stopped from denying the same. This we study in Partnership Act also. When we do partnership, say two partners are sitting and somebody third party is saying, I am a partner of this firm, and these partners are silent. And afterwards it so happened that fellow happened to borrow some funds from somebody, and that somebody can claim from you because he says he is your partner. You cannot say, no, he is not our partner. So that day you were silent, you did not deny that he was not a partner, so you are stopped from denying the same, and you are also liable. For this particular aspect or transaction, as far as this transaction is concerned, your partnership firm means you are bound by the liability created by the third party. So this is like, say somebody, you allow somebody to become an agent, and you behaved in such a way that people started thinking that that particular fellow is acting on your behalf as an agent. Later on you cannot deny, because you are stopped from denying the fact that he is your agent or he is not your agent. So if you come to fiscal laws, tax laws, particularly in sales tax, estoppel means particular government has declared a tax holiday, say for 5 years. And what happened later on? People came to that particular area, particular state, and they established their industry in order to get the tax sops. And all of a sudden, after 1 year or 2 years, the government says, no tax holiday, we are going to collect tax. So here, supposedly, the state is stopped from denying the benefit. It cannot do so, because based on the belief that you are offering tax holidays, the industry came there, they set up their industry. Now you say no, you are stopped from denying. But this concept has got so much diluted. You go through the text institute study module, nowhere else you will find information on in the public interest, etc., on so many grounds the state can back out. So if you look at today's scenario, the doctrine of estoppel has almost has lost its sheen, or almost lost its significance. It has been so much diluted, and even governments are backing out. Okay, that is estoppel.
So now we can go through some questions on service tax and VAT. One such question from service taxes.
Okay, before going to service tax, let me. There are certain questions: transit and transship, general free allowance, a new amendment. Okay, protective. On general free allowance, I was telling you in the earlier session, GFA, general free allowance is available. There are many more details. We cannot go into the details like this. You read carefully. Let me tell you. General free allowance means this is available to an Indian who visited abroad and back, or a person, maybe a foreigner who is living in India and went abroad for a short trip and back. This is available to these two categories. So basically, these people must be living in India. That is the requirement. And the maximum limit, general free allowance means you may bring dutiable goods to India, but still as baggage, but still to that extent deduction is allowed. To the extent, say right now it is 35,000 GFA. So maximum, that is the maximum of 35,000, to the extent of 35,000 per person, individual. clubbing is not allowed. Per person 35,000. The product should be, goods should be specific to specific individual. See, husband and wife cannot bring a product worth 70,000, they cannot claim the GFA of 70,000 because single product means only one single person will get the benefit. So 35,000 worth. So what is the eligibility criteria to get the maximum? He must be of 10 years and above, age, parameter number 1. Number 2, he must have stayed in a foreign country other than Nepal, China, Bhutan and Myanmar for more than 3 days. 10 years and above, stay for more than 3 days, a country other than Nepal, China, Bhutan and Myanmar. If it happens to be these countries, the amount will be less. So if all the 3 parameters are satisfied, then you will be getting a GFA up to the extent of say 35,000. In addition to this, professionals will get extra benefits, professional equipment, and for professional equipment say for 3 months or more, 20,000, 6 months or more, 40,000, and household articles say 12,000, like that. And ladies and gents who stayed abroad for 1 year or more, again ornaments, ladies up to 1 lakh free, gents up to 50,000 free. All these things you have to study carefully. Okay, last we would like to close customs with this transit and transshipment. I will use the board and make it clear because this is somewhat technical, and with this we close and we'll go to service tax. Say for example, unjust enrichment, doctrine of unjust enrichment. Say for example, a ship came to Mumbai port. Say it has 1200 tons in with it, and it has to deliver say 700 tons at Mumbai port, and it has to deliver, you can say, 200 tons at Chennai port, 9 and 300 at Gujarat port, Kandla. And what is it planning? It has reached from a foreign destination to Mumbai port with 1200 tons, 7 plus 2, 9 plus 3, 1200 tons. These 700 tons it is going to release, clear, get the clearance here. This is called port of clearance. Mumbai is the port of clearance, and the goods are imported goods. 700 tons are imported goods. Whereas it has planned to get one more ship and to transfer 200 tons to another ship and let that another ship reach Chennai. It doesn't want to go to Chennai. It wants to give it to somebody else, some other ship, and it wants to go up to Kandla and back. It wants to go to Kandla, but it doesn't want to go to Chennai. So it has transferred the goods to another ship. See here the phenomena for transshipment arises. At Mumbai port, this ship has transferred 200 tons to another ship. This is called transshipment. Transfer of goods from one ship to another ship is called transshipment. And if it happens at a particular port, the port at which such transfer takes place is called port of transshipment. So if you look at Mumbai, Mumbai is a port of transshipment, is a port of transshipment for say 200 tons. And Mumbai is a port of clearance for 700 tons, right? But at the same time, 300 tons are still lying with the ship because they are to be delivered at a port other than the port of halt, Mumbai. Mumbai, it's not going to deliver at Mumbai, it is going to deliver at Kandla. After Mumbai, it will go to Kandla. So the goods are still remaining in the ship. These are called same bottom goods are transit goods. Because these are in transit, because their destination is yet to be there. They are yet to reach their destination. They are on their way to destination. So these are called transit goods. These 300 tons are transit goods, and 200 tons are transshipped goods, and 700 tons are cleared goods. So for 300 tons, Kandla is the port of clearance, right? For 200 tons, Chennai is the port of clearance. 700 tons Mumbai, 300 tons port of clearance Kandla, for 200 tons Chennai is the port of clearance. And for 200 tons Mumbai, see, for these 200 tons, these are 300 tons, na, Kandla. For 300 tons, Mumbai is a port of transshipment because transfer is taking place here. For 700 tons, Mumbai is the port of clearance, and for 300 tons, Mumbai is a port of transit. So Mumbai is a port of transit, port of transshipment, and port of clearance for different quantities. Okay, port of transit, port of clearance, port of transshipment. Understand the difference between transit and transshipment? When the goods are lying in the same ship and they are to be delivered at a port other than the port of halt, they are still in transit, so they are called transit goods. The goods are still lying in the ship. Transshipped goods means goods meant for transfer from one ship to another ship at a particular port is called transshipment of goods. The port at which such transfer takes place is called transshipment port. Done. Thank you. And duty is payable only at the port of clearance.
So we have one question related to unjust enrichment.
Unjust doctrine
Can
of
you
unjust
explain
enrichment.
that?
Very good. The concept of doctrine of unjust enrichment arose, and it was very thoroughly dealt with under the case that is Mafatlal Industries, very famous case, Mafatlal Industries case. Constitutional bench has decided unjust enrichment means let me put it. Unjust enrichment means X is a manufacturer. Let us take X is a manufacturer and Y is a customer, manufacturer, SSC, and customer, and a duty, he has sold goods and a duty collected is 1 lakh. 1 lakh duty he collected, but it was so found out that only 50,000 was to be collected. Actual duty 50,000 only, but by mistake or otherwise he collected 1 lakh. And he also deposited the same with the department. He deposited 1 lakh with the department. Done. There is no error, there is no mistake. 11D is not applicable here. But it was found out that only 50,000 was payable. So suppose he gets the claim of refund. Suppose he gets the refund. Obviously, he will try to get the refund. Suppose he got the refund of 50,000. So he is unjustly enriched, because there is no guarantee that he will pass on that benefit to his customer. Will he refund that 50,000 excess amount collected from his customer to him? No guarantee. So the law says, when you pay certain amount of duty, and if it happens to be excess or unnecessary, still the law presumes that you have passed on that tax burden on the customer. You have already passed on that customer, the law presumes. So you are not eligible to get the refund. Say you paid 1 lakh rupees, but you have passed on this. You have already collected that 1 lakh rupees from your customer. Where is the loss? You are not going to lose anything. So you keep quiet because you are not eligible. And that fellow who bore the burden is eligible to claim, if at all he did not pass on the burden. Understand? So what is doctrine of unjust enrichment? If the manufacturer gets the refund of 50,000, he is said to be unjustly enriched to the extent of 50,000 rupees. So refund will not be given to him. Then what is the way out? He will get refund only if he is able to prove that he did not pass on the burden. Or somebody else who did not pass on the burden is eligible. He can come and claim this refund under section 11B or section 27 of the excise and customs respectively, as the case may be. So this is called doctrine of unjust enrichment. This is subject to proof. Okay? But the doctrine of unjust enrichment is not applicable in certain cases that you have to study.